It's time you learn how to talk. Like, for real. I know some of you run your mouth pretty well, but I mean learning to give a professional or academic presentation. Sure, who hasn't read off a slideshow or mumbled their way through a shy group presentation? It's time to kick things up a notch. In this episode, we'll explore tips and tricks for delivering a better speech and how to perform while it's happening. Even if you can't beat stage fright, you can still fool the audience into thinking you know what you're talking about. First and foremost are the physical aspects of performance: posture, gesture, and eye contact. As far as posture goes, you generally want to stand up straight. This gives you a more commanding appearance. If there's a podium available, you can use it to prop up your notes or script, but don't lean your elbows on it. This makes you look tired, lazy, and uninterested in what you have to say. If you look even a little bit checked out, so will your audience. Next are gestures. If you're from the Deep South, like me, we talk with our hands. Gestures come naturally, but might not always make sense. Being a teacher, this is something I've become acutely aware of. For example, if I'm defining or discussing a list of vocabulary, it helps the students to visually see the number counted by hand. That means, in addition to remembering definitions, I have to be mindful of what number we're on and what order makes sense to the kids. The problem with this skill is sometimes it's hard to turn off. As you know, I'm an English teacher, and I've often taught the same thing back to back all day. That means by the time I get to 6th and 7th hour, I'm just going through the motions. Literally. Once upon a time, I had a student who began translating my gestures for the class, like a sign language specialist. Although it was all in good fun, he made me realize that too much of a good thing is not a good thing. Needless to say, I toned it down. The final physical aspect to consider is eye contact. This is without a doubt the number one indicator of passing or failing a speech class or successfully conveying your message to your audience. Think of it this way. Your dog probably doesn't speak English, but when you stare straight at him or her, they know you're trying to meaningfully engage them, and they will use other clues, such as tone of voice, body language, or use of props to figure out what you're saying. Oddly enough, those are our next topics. We will now discuss the engagement aspects of performance. As previously stated, they are tone of voice, body language, and use of props. The tone of your voice can say a lot about how you're feeling or how you want your audience to feel. For example, I care so much about your feelings versus I care so much about your feelings. It's the same sentence, but where you place the verbal emphasis changes the message entirely. Generally speaking, higher pitches denote happy emotions, while lower ones tend to be more serious. The quicker you read or present, the more passionate or nervous you seem to be, while the slower you read or present, the more serious and ceremonial you sound. Depending on the situation, you might be able to read from a script, allowing you to focus more on your presentation. Or you might have to speak from memory, meaning content will be the primary focus. Next is body language. This includes an infinite number of signs and signals based on body movement or lack of movement. For example, if you cross your arms while presenting, this means you appear informal, but also uncertain. It conveys the message to the audience that you aren't really comfortable being vulnerable in front of a group of people. You are literally closing yourself off to them. If you aren't comfortable presenting, or you don't at least appear comfortable presenting, chances are your audience will not be open to receive what you have to say. In effect, you've already lost them. Finally, we have the use of props. The book of Genesis takes on a whole new meaning if a preacher is holding an apple while he speaks about it, especially if he takes a bite out of the apple. The physical representation of a metaphor can help us more deeply examine the meaning of a written work or school of thought. This is true both inside and outside the classroom. Think of a traffic light. Nobody tells you to stop. As you grow older and take driving courses, you learn that the colors are symbolic, even if the associations are arbitrary. In your head, the color red will forever mean no. The color green will forever mean yeah. And the color red will forever mean maybe. Even some celebrities have used this technique to further their longevity. For example, John Cena's "you can't see me" gesture has become a representation of his physical prowess for both fans and haters alike. As a final piece of advice, and this may sound cheesy because it is, be yourself. Although some situations like filming a movie or acting on stage or creating a YouTube channel require a persona, it's a lot less effort just to be who you already are. If you aren't comfortable with that person, that's okay too. We're all still learning how to deal with life. In the meantime, don't waste your time talking about things that mean nothing to you. If you have an assignment, do it, but do it your way. Where persuasive speeches are concerned, there is no wrong answer. As much as is safe and reasonable under the law, be honest about your passions and interests, and let that carry over into your viewers, your audience, and maybe one day, your students.